Right, let's take you back to Zama Khanyase of the ANC Youth League. Zama, the Constitutional Court has court in the land ordering the ANC to hand over those cadre deployment minutes. A reaction from the ANC Youth League, and what do you think the DA is going to get in those minutes?
Good evening. Thank you for having us. Firstly, obviously, South Africa is a constitutional democracy. As the ANC has already stated, we are going to study the judgment so that we adhere accordingly. Well, in terms of the minutes, I really don't think there's much to get from there, because let me start by saying that the official deployment process that the ANC actually adheres to, which you could even find proper minutes of, is where the ANC is deploying individuals or comrades to councils, to legislature, to national. There is a process that we adhere to which makes sure that it's going to come out with the best that the ANC can offer. But as far as other positions are concerned, which are outside of councils, legislatures and parliament, the ANC, obviously, as the ruling party in government, would have an interest of making sure that individuals who occupy key positions are those who understand our policy positions and are going to ensure that they implement our policies. This is something that is done across the world. This is something that would be done by any organization. And if you can go to different municipalities, for example, that may not necessarily be led by the ANC, you'd find that the same happens. So I don't think that you'd find tangible minutes and records of any other deployments outside of those who are going to councils, legislatures and parliament. It's not a written down rule, for example, that if you are deploying, let's say, for an example, a chairperson of a certain board, then the ANC obviously would want to have a view on who must go there, but it is not something that is cut in stone, that it will be as is. Sometimes the view that we may have as the ANC does not emerge, but we cannot not have an interest, because obviously as the ruling party would want to have an individual that understands what is our agenda as the ruling party.
What is view that says, well, this is going to reveal the people who are behind state capture, but not only that, it's going to also reveal that President Cyril Ramaphosa was sitting in that committee, and so he himself would have been at the center of those people who would have been deployed and who played a role in the capture of the state. Zama, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Yeah, I'm saying the DA is saying these minutes are going to reveal President Cyril Ramaphosa's complicity in the deployment of individuals who would have been involved in the state capture.
Well, I wouldn't have them really hope to have all of those revelations outside of this expectation, because, like I say, that where you would have proper perhaps a capturing of a process of any form of deployment by the ANC, it is for these, what I've already counted, councils, legislatures and parliament. But when it comes to employment of individuals in other positions, I really don't think that you would be able to find anything tangible to that extent. But you'd know that obviously there was something that was leaked, and we know that during that period, there were a lot of things that were happening in the country, and I wouldn't have them really await to see any more documentation of that nature, which would make them want to arrive to that, because it's not something that really the ANC has cut in stone. But I also do want to say that even if you can go to some of the municipalities that the DA itself is governing, go to Tshwane, for example, you have individuals of questionable qualifications who are holding key positions there. And I think that if really we want to look at any form of implications that organizations would have in terms of deployment, we should start there. And I think that as the ANC, we are going to be taking interest in that as well. And I think it's time that we begin to also reveal some of those things. Because I don't think that we should want to play politics to a point of wanting to reduce the performance of governance, the performance of municipalities, to saying that this was cadre deployment, this was what, because we're all organizations that are in power. And obviously, people that we deploy are people of interest to all of us. And I think that even if President Cyril was would have been part of a deployment committee at that time, it would have not been a decision that he takes on his own. It would have been a decision that is taken by a collective. It would have been a discussion that is of a whole collective. But when it comes to them hoping that there is something that is going to be revealed about state capture, I wouldn't have them hold their breath on that.
But the exercise of cadre deployment, as you say, is done by all other parties. It was not a successful argument, it seems, at the courts. And it's after the fact now that you're saying, oh, well, we must look into that. Why was that not your prime strategy, I suppose, in terms of dealing with this thing, to say, well, you also do cadre deployment and bring out your own evidence of cadre deployment being conducted by the Democratic Alliance?
The ANC will always want to defend its internal processes. It's called an internal process for a reason. Because you see now, like I'm busy explaining to you how, for example, if you are discussing about an interest that the ANC would have about a chairperson of a certain board, the ANC ought to have an interest, but it's not something that is a rule that is written down. Now, we have to explain such things publicly when there is no need for us to do that, because I'm saying every organization across the whole world would have such an interest. So I think that the DA is just trying to play politics, which will not stick. So the ANC obviously rightfully was right to be determined to try and stop this, because we can't, as the ruling party, as we're trying to govern, there is a certain organization that is busy worried about our internal processes instead of worrying about the work that we're doing in government, instead of having an analysis that is going to be said, to say that we have done well on this, we have not done well on this, this is where the suggestion would be to improve. But instead, the focus really is on what the ANC is doing in Luthuli House, for example. Luthuli House is for those who are supposed to be in Luthuli House. And whatever we need to report, we would report to our members and our supporters as the ANC. And then when we're in government, it's a different case altogether. So obviously the ANC had to defend itself against that. And I think that even the DA itself and any other organization, when everyone starts wanting to have an interest on their own internal processes, they are going to be reluctant to be as open and honest about what is it that they discuss about and what is it that leads them to take certain decisions.
So you're saying the public has no right to that information?
I'm saying that there are internal processes of a certain organization because of its culture, because of various factors, that you would want to have those processes internally without, and then when you go out in public, you go out to give the output of that process, which we have no problem sharing that. For example, the ANC, when it is deploying in legislatures and parliament, we have a rigorous process in place where we would vet comrades, where we would have interviews until we have an input, an output of a list of comrades that the ANC would deploy. So I don't know it is in whose interest to say that people must then sit into those interviews and listen in on the questions we ask and the responses. I think that if there are individuals who would vote for the ANC, they should trust the process, that we have gone through the rigorous process and then came out with the best of the best, which is always the intention, by the way. But we really do not have something deep to hide. It was just a matter of saying that they need to respect our processes as an organization, our internal processes.
Zama, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on. ANC Youth League spokesperson Zama Khanyase there.